Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and welcome to a very special video that I've been excited to do since, well, the beginning of this channel. And with the release of Metal Gear Solid 5, no time is more perfect than now, really. And with the end of one of gaming's biggest storylines, it's time to wonder what the hell even happened in it. Originally I was gonna play Metal Gear Solid 5 in a Let's Play, and even before that I was actually planning on just doing a look on the franchise as a whole since the first 1,000 subscribers, but due to content ID problems I couldn't. And even today I still can't, but with knowledge of how the content ID system works, I can edit this video around to actually share with all of you what the story of Metal Gear really is. Now first of all, I have to say this is going to be a very confusing video, and when I say very confusing, I mean very confusing. For starters, there are going to be spoilers, so if you don't want to see spoilers at all in the franchise, I advise you turn the video off, because that's kind of what the video is going to be about. But hey, I'd really love if you experience the games yourself, and I would kind of advise you, if you're planning on doing it, don't watch the video. But if you want to know, or if you're a person that has played the games and still wants to figure out what the fuck even happened, you want to sit down and maybe relax and, you know, dive into some Metal Gear history with me. I'm personally excited to do this, and this is my showcase to you, a feature-length showcase on the franchise's storyline. So, that being said, let's dive into the very first game in the series. Now we're going chronologically into it, and since that is the case, the first game we're going to be touching is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, releasing in 2004 for the PlayStation 2. This game was considered to be, and still is, one of the best games in the franchise, if not the best. Personally, my favorite lies with the fourth title, and contesting that with the fifth one, but those are all opinions. The game introduces Naked Snake, later on to be known as Big Boss in the Phantom Pain, and throughout the rest of the series. Naked Snake is sent on a virtuous mission, literally codenamed Virtuous Mission, a mission where Snake has to rescue Soviet defector Sokolov. During this mission, Snake encounters Ocelot's forces, and please remember Ocelot. Remember that whole title, because this is one of the very pivotal characters in the franchises. Remember it well, this character has literally an appearance in almost every single Metal Gear game. In fact, I think he has more appearances than the main characters themselves. Why? Because Ocelot. Want to ask why on that? Because nanomachines. So anyways, as Naked Snake nears completion of the assignment, he encounters his mentor, the Boss, as well as the Cobra unit. The Boss, who is known to be America's greatest agent up till now, and unfortunately for America and Snake at this point, she announces that she defects to the Soviet Union, and with that, an extremist colonel in the USSR known as Colonel Volgin fires an American portable nuke at a Soviet facility. This sparks an international incident during the Cold War, and America at this point has a lot of name clearing to do. And who do they get to do this? You guessed it, Naked Snake. So after a total mission failure, Snake gets sent right back into Soviet territory, and is now not only tasked with retrieving Sokolov, killing Colonel Volgin, and the new nuclear weapon called the Shagohod, he's also tasked with killing his mentor, the Boss. And now throughout this game, Snake would be assisted by two ex-NSA agents, codebreakers to be exact, defecting to the Soviet government. One would be known as Eva, and the other one would be known as Adam. Once arriving in Selino-Yarsk via drone, Snake shortly after encounters the Boss, who, like you guess, hands his ass to him and breaks his firearms, and even the drone. Kind of a dick move there. As Snake ventures further, he arrives to the same building he retrieved Sokolov from, and here he waits for Adam. Instead, Eva arrives, and although she fails the passphrase check needed by military units, and Snake here, he eventually ignores this once Eva saves him from an ambush. After all this, and handing Snake a scientist's disguise, resting that night, Snake wakes up to Ocelot and his friends ambushing Snake, and in a hurry, Snake tells Eva to hide, and he proceeds to defeating the Ocelot unit. After fighting the unit, Ocelot attempts to kill Snake and takes Eva hostage. He somehow forgets, yes, Major Ocelot, somehow forgets that that gun he was using only had 6 bullets. Yes, a major in the army forgot that. Anyways, Eva overpowers him, and instead of shooting him, Snake lets him live. Eva tells Snake she needs to go back undercover with Volgin at this point, and Snake begins sneaking towards the objective, which is now Granini Gorky, the facility. As he continues his mission, Snake encounters Ocelot once again and squares off with him Wild West style. Eventually, when what happens next is a Cobra member unit, the Pain to be exact, who commands an army of Hornets, and I'm not kidding you here. He uses these Hornets to spread hell everywhere, and Snake quickly, to avoid them, jumps into a cavern below. As Snake makes his way through this cavern, he encounters the Pain, and here is where he must fight and eventually succeed, besting one of the Cobra members. After his explosion, Snake leaves the caves and moves towards an aqueduct where he sees Sokolov, and at this point Sokolov is actually getting his ass handed to him by Volgin, who is completely pissed that Sokolov would even think of defecting to the United States. At that point he begins to harm Tatiana, Sokolov's alleged lover, who is actually Eva disguised, by the way, as you could tell, with his powers of electricity. Don't ask how, it gets much weirder as I go later on. Wait until we get to Metal Gear Solid 2. But moving forward, Sokolov, still in danger, gets put into a match of Russian roulette with Ocelot, surviving that only with intervention by the boss herself. Sokolov lives, and things begin to kind of clear up in the area. Snake then proceeds to finally get to Granini Gorky. Once arriving, Snake sneaks through using his scientist outfit and encounters the facility director, Dr. Alexander Leonovich Garanin, who seems to enjoy drinking quite a fair bit. He's pissed that Volgin is using money to make the Shagohod versus his own weapon, and even intends to send documents of a Metal Gear project to a friend in the United States, who is known to be Huey Emmerich, Otacon's dad. Don't worry, we'll get to him in a bit. Granin also tells Snake of something called the Philosopher's Legacy, a stash of money worth $100 billion, which by inflation would be about $1.2 to $1.4 trillion. It was collected by the highest powers in China, the Soviet Union, and the United States during World War II. Alongside this was a list of members of the Philosophers. Granin hopes Snake saves Sokolov, and his weapon is considered to be superior to the world. He gives Snake a keycard and pushes him towards Groznygrad in the mountains. Snake leaves the facility and ventures back to the jungle. He encounters the Fear, another member of the Cobra unit. Possessing superhuman abilities and even having a cool stealth suit to boot, Snake can don thermal goggles and wipe this blemish off the face of the earth and return right to his mission. Pretty easy. During his journey to the mountains, Snake comes across Sokrveno and is put into a fight with the End, the Cobra unit's legendary sniper. Being so old, this is his final battle. I mean, again, look at how old the guy is. You can fight him, or hey, wait a week and save the game, wait a week, come back, and he'll be dead of old age. I'm not even joking, that's actually a thing. Once Snake bests the End, which is arguably one of my favorite battles in the entire franchise as a whole, he reaches the peak of the mountains. Snake encounters Eva, and she gives him a key to make his way through the underground mountain path to Groznygrad. Eva also says that she secures an escape, and tells Snake where Sokolov is being held in a secure location in Groznygrad. Eva then returns to Groznygrad undercover, and Snake now notices that Volgin has killed Granin, and things seem to be escalating. Snake sneaks into the underground path and encounters the next member of the Cobra unit, and the final one before the boss herself, the Fury, a blast shield wearing cosmonaut with a flamethrower. After including another tough battle, Snake then is treated to the spirit of the Fury caused by his explosion caving in these tunnels. Again, you might think it's weird, don't worry, it gets much weirder. Snake then gets into the heart of Groznygrad, and once infiltrating, Snake then incapacitates Major Rykov, and dons his clothing and goes to rescue Sokolov. But apparently it seems as though once he finally got to the guy, Sokolov describes more of the Shagohod project and states it could strike anywhere in the United States. Volgin plans on mass-producing these, and leads the world to a full-blown nuclear war, or at least that's the plan. Snake says no and asks how to destroy the Shagohod. Sokolov says he needs some C3 plastic explosives, and that settles that. Sokolov feels he's a monster now, saying that if he goes to the United States, he'd only be making weapons, and if he stays, he'd be stuck in a gulag. Instead, he asks Snake to make sure that his family is safe and secure. Snake, about to escort him out of the base, comes across Volgin, who, get this, has a relationship, an intimate one, with Major Rykov, and because of this, attacks Snake. And trust me, during torture later on, and torture indeed, Volgin comes across his transmitter, along with, again, beating Snake's ass senselessly, and demands to know what the heck is going on. The boss present during the interrogation claims it's by her to help the Cobra unit find Snake, and even tells Volgin that you can't torture Snake, he was trained by her and really won't subject to it. Now at this point, the boss's loyalty is a tad questioned, and she has to prove she's on Volgin's side, and the side of the Soviet Union in general. Now, at this point during the torture, Tatiana, Eve again, begs not to hurt Snake or let the boss hurt Snake. Again, the boss now has to hurt Apprentice, really, in order to prove her loyalty. Now, Ocelot begins to play Russian roulette with Eva because he believes that Eva is actually a traitor. Snake doesn't let Eva get hurt, though, and instead takes Ocelot's bullet, which is supposed to go to her, right into his eye. Now towards this, the boss shoots Snake in the leg as well, and the bullet, at that point by the way, contains a death pill which you would use later on in the game to help escape, or rather, get past the boss battle later on. Now Snake is knocked out. He has a transmitter inside him along with that death pill. Snake gets locked up, and again, because of this, soon escapes afterwards and running into the sewers. And finally jumping off into a river, almost killing himself because he's been, well, captured by, GRU operatives who captured him during the escape. He jumps down, and at that point, he is knocked out. In this dream sequence, basically, which occurs, he encounters a character known as the Sorrow, a member of the Cobra unit that was taken out by the boss. He finally wakes up later on, and Snake makes his way to a cave to meet Eva. Here, Eva hands him C3 explosives, they talk about his eye, Snake gets back into the rhythm of things, and he makes his way to Groznygrad. Once arriving, Snake makes his way to the hangar, plants a C3, and then is encountered by Volgin. Snake, disarmed by the boss, and Eva, discovered as a spy, Volgin proceeds to tell Snake about the Philosopher's legacy, and how the individuals behind the group were the leaders of their respective nations during World War II. Volgin said that his father did some dirty tricks to secure that money for the Soviets and Soviets as a whole. And using a tunnel of spies, he actually got the boss to defect to the Soviet Union. Volgin challenges Snake, and alongside a gruntled ocelot, they beat him. And after a tough fight, bombs blow up and Snake escapes alongside Eva on a motorbike. A chase sequence through Groznygrad, it's revealed Volgin is now piloting the Shagohod, and shit is really going to hell. Snake and Eva lead the Shagohod to a bridge armed with explosives, and blowing that Shagohod off the bridge, Snake and Eva rest a bit, but not for long as the Shagohod still has a few tricks up its sleeve. A tough fight later, Snake defeats Volgin, kills him, and the Shagohod threat. Snake and Eva continue after escaping to the WIG, their escape vehicle by the way, and finally when they arrive to the WIG, Snake goes on to do his final objective, and that is to put a bullet right into the boss. Snake meets up with his mentor, and when eventually besting her, he finally puts the bullet right into her, effectively at that point becoming Big Boss, a title that he would not take until later into the series. A disgruntled, naked Snake returns to the United States and now questions his loyalty. He doesn't shake the hands of any of the top-tier members in the debriefing chambers. He instead goes to the grave of his mentor and gives her one final salute. Now the next title in the franchise continuing the story is known as Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, the least talked about game in the franchise. But I'm here to show you all what this game has in store. And I'll be fast. It begins with Snake awaking in a prison cell in Colombia, the San Jeronimo Peninsula to be exact. Snake is interrogated by Foxhound interrogation specialist Lieutenant Cunningham, who is attempting to locate the missing half of the Philosopher's legacy. While suspecting Big Boss, who still went under the codename of Naked Snake in this game by the way, he escapes with the help of fellow prisoner Roy Campbell, who appears much later in the series as Colonel Campbell. Once escaping, Snake tries to contact his old commanding officer, Major Zero, but instead talks with his old comrades, Paramedic and Sigint, revealing that both Snake and Zero are accused of instigating a revolt and even stealing a prototype weapon. Zero has been placed under arrest for treason, and the only way for any of their names to get cleared is Snake has to apprehend the leader of this Fox rebellion. So, Snake decides to go infiltrating a Soviet patrol base to get some documents, but instead discovers a plan of a weapon to destroy every major city in Russia, confirming that Fox is actually behind such a weapon, and they do plan to use it. Now, Snake recruits more and more of the soldiers here in this area under the, guidelines of Campbell, telling him that they need an army to actually fight what's going on. So, again, one saying, Snake goes around beating soldiers unconscious, taking them back to a truck, and I don't know what they do in there, but it's really convincing. Later on, Snake continues his operation, and he encounters a soldier called Null, known as Frank Yeager, a character again who appears much later in the series, also known as Gray Fox. Now, you may have heard of this character, and he is a very pivotal character if you started playing through the PS1 series. But for now, here he serves as a boss battle, and after that, God knows whatever happens until much later on in the series. At the end of this, Snake gets knocked unconscious, and Campbell leads the men that Snake and him have recruited to get back, so at this point Snake is missing. Now during all this, Snake is actually being tortured, and he comes across the Fox leader, Gene. Now Gene shares a moment alone to talk about loyalty, eventually before discussing what is called the Successor Project, and this is a top secret project by the United States to create the perfect commander. Later on, Null would lose his mind and try to find Snake because in his mind, his mission wasn't complete. Remember, Null is a character in this game that is locked in stasis tanks after every mission, completely wiped clean. His mission ain't over. Gene would lock him away, but the point of all that was to show the seeds being sown in the character known as Gray Fox. Again, an impression being left on him that was pretty paramount. Snake, now in prison for the 600th time, is met by a woman known as Elise, who offers him food and tells him of where Metal Gear is. Later here, he is saved by the recruits of his recruited soldiers, his little army that he has made, and with that his morale and everyone's morale is really boosted. Snake and his team make his way to Metal Gear to end the whole thing once and for all. Around this time, Elise again also joins Snake and his cohorts, and with that they make their way to the plant where Metal Gear is held, and once infiltrating, Snake comes across Metal Gear Rasa. With TNTs and a ton, and I mean a ton of RPG ammunition, Snake bests the Metal Gear and begins to question the man behind the whole thing, Gene. Gene compliments Snake with defeating Roxa. Snake tells him to surrender, but it seems this bastard again has a few more tricks up his sleeve. For once, Rasa was just a test, and the real weapon is still out there. 2, he rescued and took Sokolov on his side. Yeah, he ended up being alive, I don't know how. In person, by the way. But despite being grateful to Gene, he couldn't bear to see his weapon used against his own country, the Soviet Union. Using said weapon still out there, long story short, Snake stops his Metal Gear after it is launched and gains the title of Boss. Snake sneaks off in his merry way to upcoming relevant titles in the franchise. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be honest here. Despite this game actually being canon, it's considered a spin-off, to be honest. A good one, a good game in general, but it's still a spin-off. In fact, Hideo Kojima even questions its canon status at times, but for now, it is canon. It is. And that being said, it's a part of the story. Now, if a year or two later this apparently gets kicked out of any canonical evidence, then I guess just omit this part of the video here. But no matter how nonsense it is or how little it's mentioned, it's still a canon game. But moving on, let's go to a more relevant title. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, releasing in 2010 for the PSP and later on for the PS3 and Xbox 360, was a far more important title in the franchise. The game returned us to Naked Snake, now under the codename, or in the process of transitioning to the codename of Big Boss, following the story of him and his new unit known as Militaires Sans Frontières, which would eventually be known as Outer Heaven. Snake, approached by an individual known as Ramon Galvez Mena from the University of Peace, alongside a student, Paz Ortega Andrade, seek MSF's aid in repelling an unknown force in their country. Galvez offers Snake a chopper in an operating base off the coast of the Caribbean. Snake and his second-in-command, Kazuhira Miller, discuss this between each other, and although Snake isn't convinced totally, he comes to the realization that Professor Ramon was actually a KGB operative. And, if he did this mission, it would actually mean that Snake, and MSF in general, would make an enemy out of the United States, their home country. When Galvez is confronted, he drops his act. He then plays a cassette tape containing the voice of Snake's mentor, the boss. Snake, shaken by the thought of this revelation, agrees to doing the operation. A week later, an MSF settled into their new base. Snake makes his way to an offshore plant in Costa Rica, evading the CIA. He discovers, once infiltrating the plant, that there are radiation badges, and an aircraft flying above him carrying spears. Nuclear weapons to be exact, and at this point, things begin to escalate. Snake goes to enlist the help of the Sandinistas, local resistance, and Snake meets with the commander of the Sandinistas. And during their meeting, an unidentified drone kidnaps her younger brother Chico, Amanda's younger brother to be exact, the leader of the Sandinistas, or at least what she thinks is unofficially, but she is the Comandante. Snake decides to go rescue Chico, and in fact he has to. Snake reaches a prison up in the mountains and finds Chico. Once locating Chico tells Snake of a CIA shipping route. Chico knows no more because he never ventured further due to this fear of El Basilisco, aka one of the many bosses you fight later. Snake evacs Chico and heads out further into the wilderness, and once reaching the shipping route, being a train yard along, Snake finds out that he's too late to stop the nukes, and is now fighting a tank force. Snake, and just for cohesiveness sake, I'm going to call him Big Boss from now on, takes care of the tank force and continues to look out for nukes. Big Boss, forced to use an alternate route, comes across an old fortress where he finds two characters, Hot Coldman and Huey Emmerich. Coldman, who's the CIA station chief of Central America, plans on firing a nuclear warhead using Huey's weapon to prove its effectiveness in the nuclear deterrence theory, and by doing so, apparently get his job back as the CIA director? Huey said no, and as arguments escalated, Coldman pushes the wheel-bound chairman down a stairway. Dick. Big Boss helps Huey, and Huey notifies Boss of an unmanned weapon. And during all this, Big Boss gets assaulted by the first of many of these unmanned weapons, the Pupa, a tank similar to the Shagohod. Big Boss beats Pupa and is told of the Peace Walker project. The project aimed to be an automated nuclear launch system ready to attack without any human input whatsoever. Yeah, smart idea, right? Really smart idea. But anyways, moving on. Big Boss is told that this is taken to a border region, and Snake sets off on a mission to put a stop to all of this, all within a gracious time limit of just 5 days. Big Boss sets out for the AI facility. When arriving to it, finds it's hidden in an ancient Mayan temple. Big Boss, after some ID card issues, infiltrates the area and encounters a character named as Dr. Strangelove, who, get this, hates him for killing the boss in Metal Gear Solid 3. She revives her mind in the AI pod by recreating all the information offered to her by the CIA. And after all this, she implants her mind into the Peace Walker unit as she would be the perfect judge of its uses. I guess? Strangelove's goal was to understand why the boss did what she did and why die. Big Boss called her a traitor, and refused to know her will. Kinda hypocritical since he also betrayed the states, but whatever. Big Boss enters the AI pod, but finds that he can't stop her because of her haunting words. Big Boss awakes after passing out to notice that the AI pod is being carried away via helicopter, and the Chrysalis AI weapon now shows up. Another unmanned weapon, by the way, and a fight ensues. Big Boss beats the weapon and continues his pursuit, making his way to a mining pit and fighting another AI weapon, and a massive one like that, known as Cocoon. Big Boss shockingly, again, I know, shocking, right, defeats the weapon and proceeds to venture further. Coming across the AI pod with the boss, he questions it and is then apprehended by soldiers. Awaking in a prison cell after, again, another torture session. This guy really isn't a torture all the time. He really gets stuck into it a whole lot. Big Boss escapes and recovers his gear. Miller tells Big Boss that Paz is missing, and Coldman tells Big Boss that Peace Walker is complete and the first attack point will be Mother Base. Shit. Long story short, Big Boss eventually comes across Peace Walker, starts a fight, and after a tough battle, Peace Walker retreats, and with Big Boss in chase. But because of that speed advantage that the Peace Walker has, it escapes, and the final infiltration commences. Big Boss gets all the way to Nicaragua, takes on the Peace Walker once and for all, and eventually, once infiltrating this facility and getting to the command room, finds that he's surrounded by soldiers, Soviets to be exact, and he knows he is properly fucked. Coldman goes on to talk about deterrence, and it's revealed that Professor Galvez, whose real name now is Vladimir Alexandrovich Zadornov, are working together, explaining the Soviet soldiers, right? Zadornov now betrays Coldman and wanted to fire a nuke at Cuba, since an American nuke attacking a nation by a nation which was pro-American wouldn't exactly be good at the image for America. So with launch data inputted, Big Boss is not just fucked, but so is America and Mother Base. Coldman gets shot, ending up dying, and Big Boss is put execution style awaiting death. And with seconds to spare, MSF invades, killing everyone, and the situation diffuses. But this is Metal Gear, it can't be that simple. Well, it isn't. Because Peace Walker is sending data out, and NORAD in the US believes that there's an actual nuclear strike about to occur. Big Boss setting out to destroy Peace Walker, and after a lengthy battle, data still gets sent out. America almost about to launch this nuke, Big Boss enters the AI pod and desperation ensues. Eventually the machine gets up, being controlled by the boss's AI, it drowns itself, effectively committing virtual suicide? Big Boss salutes to his fallen mentor, tossing his bandana out into the wind. The situation in the States is diffused, no nuke gets set off, and Big Boss at the end tells Kaz that he wishes to live differently than the boss, and that she betrayed him. Snake at this point takes the title of Big Boss, and the lore continues. And after all these events, MSF develops their own AI weapon known as Metal Gear Zeke, even outfitting it with a nuclear firearm. It gets hijacked by Paz no less, revealing herself to be an agent of the Shadow Group Cypher, the one that Big Boss is completely against. And after a fight, Zeke is questioned, but it stays around, and the next game in the story arrives. Before getting all those subtitles added onto it, releasing on the MSX and later the NES, this would be the first mission Solid Snake would serve in Foxhound. This wasn't Big Boss, ladies and gentlemen, this was his clone, Solid Snake, the one created from the Les Enfants Terribles project, mentioned in the earlier Metal Gear games chronologically, the project where Big Boss, Naked Snake, was cloned, and out came 3 clones, Solid Snake, Liquid Snake, and Solidus Snake. People that I'll focus on a little later in the video. Solid Snake is sent to the mission, titled Operation Intrude N313 by his commanding officer, Big Boss. After dispatch to a rough area of Outer Heaven, Solid Snake infiltrates the facility and eventually locates missing operative Gray Fox, who was initially sent, but failed. From here he rescues numerous hostages and resistance leader Kyle Schneider. Solid Snake eventually allows himself to be captured and sent to prison under Big Boss's tips, and from here he finds Gray Fox. Fox tells him to find Dr. Drago Petrovic Madnar, creator of Metal Gear and a character that would be pivotal later on in the series. Snake tries to locate the Doctor in a prison cell in the courtyard area. Once breaking him out of the cell, he encounters the warden known as Shotmaker. Snake defeats the previously undefeated champion, and after fighting his way through Shotmaker and another mercenary known as Machine Gun Kid, yeah, they weren't very original in Outer Heaven, were they? Snake arrives to another building and battles a tank halfway through, and after finally donning a disguise, gets into the heart of the base and locates Dr. Madnar, who turns out to be a decoy. and narrowly surviving a trap, fights Fire Trooper, and at this point begins to hunt for the real Dr. Madnar, where he encounters a woman named Jennifer fighting in the Resistance, providing Snake with a rocket launcher, and with this, Snake fights Bloody Brad. And after all this, Snake rescues Madnar, finally, who goes to tell Solid Snake about his missing daughter and how he should really rescue her first, and then he'll comply. Snake rescues her eventually with assistance from a Resistance operative known as Diane. Eventually, Ellen, the daughter, gets rescued, and Dr. Madnar informs Snake of the Metal Gear TX-55, located 20 kilometers to the north on the 100th floor basement of Building 3. In order to destroy it, Snake needs to place charged explosives by the feet. Snake makes his way to the building, fighting Dirty Dolan and acquiring security access. Once all this is done, Solid Snake is contacted by Kevin Schneider about the truth of Outer Heaven's leader, and before he could finish the communications, they were cut off. Snake presses on and destroys Metal Gear, and once this is performed, Outer Heaven goes into self-destruct mode, and Big Boss reveals himself as the leader of Outer Heaven and the whole thing, and tells Solid Snake he was only supposed to get some false intelligence, but he achieved way too much and ruined Outer Heaven as a result. And in a face-to-face battle, Snake finally overcomes his clone daddy and gets the hell out of the facility, and once successfully escaping, Solid Snake called back, operation a success, and goes into retirement. Outer Heaven is bombarded, and few people know of what actually even happened. Following these events, though, was the next game in the series, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Metal Gear 2 puts Solid Snake into Zanzibar Land, a small nation bordering Russia, China, Pakistan, and other countries that gained independence from Russia after a mercenary war. Due to an oil crisis, a new market for high-tech oils was created. One such technology, called Oilix, could actually replicate petroleum-grade oil, and it was created by Dr. Keo Marv. It took little effort and expense to produce, and all was good, using some kind of a bacteria, which is actually, in real life, IRL, being used as a possible petroleum solution. Now, Dr. Keo Marv is kidnapped, and Snake, brought out of retirement, is sent to rescue the poor doctor. And this begins what we call, in Metal Gear history, the Zanzibar Land disturbance. Once arriving, Snake sneaks into a facility. He encounters CIA operative acting as a journalist, Holly White. She serves as Snake's partner in the intrusion. Snake makes his way to the 3rd floor of the main building, where he believes the doctor is held, but finds Black Ninja. Snake beats him, and it's revealed that he was actually Kyle Schneider from the Resistance in the original Metal Gear. He tells Snake of what happened after they had lost contact. He tells Snake after the original events of Metal Gear, NATO had bombed Outer Heaven, killing orphans and refugees, and that he was captured by a cleanup crew and used as some guinea pig for a Black Ninja project. And once all that was done, Kyle, getting out of the whole project, goes to Zanzibar Land to assist in the coup. He gave a single clue, though, that said, "Follow the green beret." Snake takes this advice literally and follows a soldier with a green beret. This leads him to a small building with a doctor behind it. Snake needs to use a tap code, which is some cryptic shit that, believe me, I don't like. And I'll admit it. I looked it up originally. I looked up the answer, because fuck the tap code. Fuck everything about the tap. Fuck whatever the tap code stood for. Anyways, returning to the game, we discover that the doctor wasn't actually Keo Marv. No, it was Madnar. Remember the guy who made the original Metal Gear? This guy was captured to make another Metal Gear, the Metal Gear D to be exact, in this game. Madnar tells Snake to find Marv because of his heart condition, and Snake sets out to find the good doctor. Snake crosses a desert, and while doing so, he gets a call from his #1 fan, warning him about some mines in the way, and after fighting a helicopter and Running Man, yeah, now we're getting to Mega Man level of character naming originality, he gets to Dr. Keo Marv. Here, he reaches the 2nd building, fighting Red Blaster or Red Spetsnaz, depending on what version, and gets a note from a pigeon. Turns it upside down, and whoa, it was Marv's codec frequency. Here he notices the guy can't speak English, and you'd think they could try to translate over some codec with someone, who actually knew some Russian, right over the comms, but no. That would make too much sense. He goes on to find an STB agent named Gustava Hefner. Snake sneaks into the woman's bathroom into the main building and makes contact. They get Madnar, and on the way, even have a bit of a talk. Eventually, reaching this bridge towards the detention camp, Madnar, makes it across, and Snake and Gustava try to make it across as well, but a missile strike comes by and blows the bridge up. Armed guards take away Madnar, and Metal Gear D arrives, with Gray Fox piloting it. He tells Snake to get out of Zanzibar Land, and Gustava, who's now dying thanks to the missile, gave Snake a brooch, which can change into a key at different temperatures. With her passing, Snake gets more determination than ever to fight Big Boss and his former war buddy, Gray Fox, than ever before. He fights 4 Horsemen, Jungle Evil, and Night Fright. No, those aren't bad NES titles. Those are actually enemy names. I know. Pretty bad. He gets to Dr. Marv, and just to find out that he is long gone out of this world. Holly, however, calls him, and it's revealed that Madnar, who, by the way, once meeting, admitted that he had in fact killed Dr. Marv, even caused the death of Gustava, and then hell attacking Snake as well, but the Doctor again was not showing his intelligence and taking on a legendary soldier and gets his ass handed to him. And this is where Snake kicks it into overdrive. Long story short, he gets the Oilix formula and ends up defeating Metal Gear D with grenades to its legs, and once done, he ends up to fight his former ally, Gray Fox, who after the explosion of Metal Gear and its aftermath grabs the Oilix formula from Snake. Arguably one of the best moments of this franchise, Snake and Fox fight on a minefield. Snake meets Fox and is told over Codec by his military expert that Gray Fox, whose name is really Frank Yeager, turns out he was engaged to Gustava the whole time. After a fight, Fox tells Snake of how Big Boss had saved him multiple times. Remember Null? And how he needed war to live. Fox at this point dies. Or, until he shows up later in the franchise. Fox dies, and I'm using dies with quotation marks here. Snake consoles his former ally with the fact that his fiancée is on the other side. Snake gets the Oilix formula, and Snake is greeted by Big Boss. Another arduous fight later where Snake literally uses a can of aerosol paint and lighter to make a makeshift flamethrower and using that to kill Big Boss. Let me reiterate, the most legendary soldier in all the land, Big Boss, was actually wiped out with a can of aerosol and a lighter. Yeah, seep that in, audience. Snake then escapes with Holly and retires to Alaska, and that's where Metal Gear Solid kicks in. Now, this game in the franchise is one where most people started with, and I'll be honest, this is where I began my Metal Gear wet dreams. This game places us in the feet of Solid Snake, who once again is out of retirement, a terrorist group known as the Sons of Big Boss, named because they were based on the genetic code of Big Boss. The soldiers and leaders of the terrorist attack Liquid Snake had captured, secret nuclear base along with taking hostages. DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and Arms Tech President Kenneth Baker, they threatened to use Metal Gear Rex for a nuclear strike. The demands are simple. They hand over the remains of Big Boss and $1 billion, all within 24 hours. The US, in a tricky situation, sends in Solid Snake under command of his former commander Roy Campbell. Snake has two objectives now. One is to rescue both hostages, and the other is to discover if the terrorists really have the ability to launch a nuke. Snake initially refuses, but agrees because of the gravity of the situation, and also because the Colonel's niece is on the base. Snake agrees, but only under the parameters of Campbell giving him orders and full disclosure of mission details. Snake infiltrates Shadow Moses and proceeds on his mission. A few minutes into this, he discovers Liquid Snake is setting off in a Hind D to fight off two F-16s sent in as a diversion. Spoiler alert, they get shot down. Snake sneaks into the facility and meets with the DARPA Chief. The DARPA Chief explaining Metal Gear Rex really can launch a nuke, which shocks Snake initially just on hearing Metal Gear itself. Anderson explains that Snake needs a PAL system to deactivate Rex alongside 3 keys, but then the Chief dies of this mysterious heart attack. Snake becomes suspicious, wondering if he really is being told everything. But before he could really think about anything else, Snake hears Meryl Silverberg from the cell next door, and this again is another pivotal character. Escaping, and once again she opens the cell door that Snake is locked inside in the cell. He exits only to be put at gunpoint. Snake and her have a little chit-chat, but get interrupted by a couple soldiers, who get taken out. And as they get taken out, they make an escape. Meryl screws over Snake, and she gets out. Snake decides to go one floor below at this point and make his way to the other hostage, Kenneth Baker, being held by Revolver Ocelot. Once coming across, he meets with Ocelot in one intense match of Duck Duck Goose. A cyborg ninja appears and chops off the hand of Ocelot. And the situation diffuses at this point when Ocelot retreats. Snake saves Baker, and Baker details that his company was actually in the poorhouse, and this Metal Gear was a project he needs. Baker tells Snake that in order to stop Rex, he needs the PAL keys, which only Meryl has. Snake is also given an optical disc and also tells the ninja is Foxhound's dirty secret. Baker then tells Snake to find Hal Emmerich, the creator of the Metal Gear, who knows how to deal with Metal Gear, obviously being the creator, in the building to the north. Baker then has the same heart attack that the DARPA Chief has, and while dying yells how the Pentagon betrayed him. Snake contacts Meryl using the back of this Metal Gear Solid CD case, and no, I'm not kidding, you literally had to look at the back of that CD case. They both agree to stopping the whole situation. Meryl helps Snake out of the building he's in, and Snake gets into the outdoors, only to be contacted by his biggest fan, who tells him of mine, eerily sounding similar, right? And how his name is Deep Throat, and there is a tank that is waiting ahead. Of course, he was right, and a tank was waiting behind door number uno, with Vulcan Raven, one of the members of Foxhound, this group that they're against here, piloting it. And spoiler alert, Snake does end up defeating the tank with a combination of chaff and frag grenades. Raven, after defeat, clears that Snake is good enough and awaits another battle. Snake sneaks into the next building and finds Hal Emmerich, alongside the cyborg ninja, who, get this, is actually Gray Fox. Yes, I'm not joking, Gray Fox into a ninja body. That's a pretty big secret. Snake fights him hand to hand, and once defeating him, tells Campbell. Campbell is shocked, and Naomi eventually confirms that this is in fact true, and Gray Fox was the result of a work of a doctor known as Dr. Clark, who died in an explosion. This doctor is known as Paramedic from Metal Gear Solid 3, so you can tell where she went into after all that. She tells Snake how they found Fox's body, and after 4 years with his body, they, experimented with him and turned him into what he was. They used him also to help create all those gene soldiers on the Shadow Moses facility. Snake rescues Hal, and then he gives his nickname Otacon, and they both eventually end up becoming the best of teams ever. Otacon tells Snake of Rex and how he was intended to serve as a deterrent. Otacon tells Snake that if the PAL doesn't work, he'd actually have to destroy Rex. Snake notices that Otacon doesn't have a heart attack, considering it's pretty weird since the other two characters he met had a heart attack. Now, after this whole conversation, Snake needs to meet up with Meryl to exchange the PAL system she had. Snake eventually tracks her down and they exchange one key. There needed to be 3, but she only has 1. Regardless, Snake and Meryl move forward and they're greeted by Psycho Mantis. Mantis tries to control Meryl, but Snake knocks her out, and after a 4th wall-shattering battle later, Snake wins. And then here, both move forward, and shortly after meeting Sniper Wolf, who shoots Meryl, leaving her dying, forced to fight, but having no tools, is told of a sniper rifle all the way back in the first building by Otacon, leaving him to backtrack. He arrives back to find her body missing, only left by a little pool of blood, and a fight ensuing, literally a second after entering. He pops some Pentazemin and fights off Sniper Wolf and wins. Snake moves up forward and is taken into custody by Sniper Wolf, who I guess just feigned her death. Snake reawakes in her torture room where Liquid, Ocelot, as well as Wolf. Snake is now being tortured by Ocelot, and if he fails this, is told that Meryl, who is apparently alive, would actually be dead, if Snake fails the torture, that is. Snake obviously survives the torture, if you the player can survive, pressing the circle key that fast, eventually escapes his short prison sentence, where, by the way, he also notices his dead cellmate, the DARPA chief, who had been rotting, meaning that he was dead for certain days. Snake discovers that this was the real chief, and here's a little note, that chief was actually sickened from Metal Gear Solid 3. They all ended up as weird bad guys, I guess, at the end of the day. But regardless, Snake realizes there's a bigger conspiracy, but moves to work his way through the facility and stop Metal Gear for now. He fights Liquid in a Hind D, and he beats Snake, Liquid Snake rather, rappels down, works his way through. Snake eventually gets to an open field where Sniper Wolf is waiting for him. Snake enters another intense battle until eventually besting her. Then one of the greatest cutscenes in the franchise occurs, and Snake and Otacon set out to finish the job. Snake works his way to the control room, besting Vulcan Raven along the way. Snake also makes his way to Metal Gear. Master Miller contacts him, telling him that there's something about Naomi that is a lie, and how her entire story had many flaws. Campbell intrudes and the three discuss. Miller suggests to arrest Naomi, and Campbell tries to dissipate the conversation. Snake realizes that this conspiracy really is building up, and he asks Campbell. Campbell had stated, and eventually slipped information of his involvement with the death of the DARPA chief and Kenneth Baker. Snake at this point doesn't want to give him any more time. Snake moves on to the control room. Meanwhile, while getting to that control room, beats the crap out of Vulcan Raven in an intense fight. And once he reaches his control room, he does hear a conversation between Ocelot and Liquid. Snake contacts Otacon and he confirms the poor financial state of Arms Tech, and Snake eventually learns that the PAL system needed to defuse the Metal Gear system relied on that one card by Meryl. See, instead of having just 3 separate keys that worked like the brooch from Metal Gear 2, it needed to be exposed to different temperatures and eventually it would turn into different cards. And then those cards would be used one by one to turn that system off. Snake then sets off and eventually he disables the system. Now during this whole event, Naomi is taken into custody after told that she was a spy, but eventually in a secret conversation between Snake and Naomi is revealed that Gray Fox was her adopted brother. With her only family killed by Snake, she vowed revenge. Big Boss and Fox brought her to America and went off to fight the war in Zanzibar. She hated Snake and waited years to kill Snake. She reveals how she injected Snake with an artificial virus known as Fox Dye during the briefing to the game. She would selectively kill anyone this virus had made contact with. Selective people. The virus would be coated with certain DNA that it would attack. Now, before she could tell Snake everything, she's taken down by Campbell and taken away. Snake obviously upset, and Campbell felt betrayed and used. Once Snake put in the PAL system, it was revealed that Snake had actually started the system, instead of turning it off like he intended. Since the PAL could only be used to stop and start the system, it could only, again, be used once. And, now the cards being useless, Snake was contacted by Miller, who turned out to be Liquid the whole time, and reveals that Liquid never had the means to even detonate the nukes. He used Solid Snake the whole time as a means to doing this job for him. What a dick. Snake then escapes the control room and proceeds to fight Liquid, who arms himself in the Metal Gear. During this fight at one point, Gray Fox intrudes and saves Snake while sacrificing himself to destroy Metal Gear's radome, a key component that would hinder its defenses. Gray Fox gave Snake his final farewell while telling Snake he killed Naomi's parents. Fox felt so much guilt that he took her in as family, but still felt the guilt regardless, thus leaving. Snake defeats Metal Gear and stops the threat. He is then taken to the top of the Metal Gear and wakes up to find Liquid, who reveals the truth. Liquid reveals to Snake, on wanting to make a world where soldiers are always needed, Liquid tells of the Les Enfants Terribles project, where he reveals that he and Snake are clones of Big Boss. Liquid also states that he is the inferior clone, and Solid Snake is the actual superior one, which later on in the series finds out to be reversed, and that he hates his dad, Big Boss, as well, and all of this was caused because of that one little hatred. Seriously, talk about daddy issues. Snake contacts Campbell and is betrayed by the very people that hired him. Campbell reveals that they deliberately sent Meryl to get captured, to keep Campbell hostage, and get Snake on their side. He apologizes, and a final gesture to his pal helps Snake by fucking up the chain of command. One fight later, Snake wins, tossing Liquid off the gear. He saves Meryl, who is unconscious nearby, and they both escape the facility. And during that escape, they get on a jeep and are being chased by Liquid, who is relentless and won't die. One chase sequence, they make it to the end. Snake, about to be shot by Liquid, is saved by the Foxdie virus. The Foxdie virus kills Liquid. Now, Snake asks Naomi how much time he has left, because remember, if it kills Liquid, that means the DNA code in that virus can actually kill Solid as well, and all Naomi says to him is to keep living. Meryl and Snake leave and set off into the sunset. Snake tells her that his name is actually David. And the final, the true, after the credits, it's all revealed. That the president of the US was actually Solid as Snake, a third clone, the third one. The US government denies any involvement and issues a cover story. Naomi is placed under arrest but escapes 3 days later with the help of Ocelot, and Ocelot himself ended up leaking that test data of Metal Gear X to the world. All is well and good, I guess, at the end, until Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Snake and Otacon in this game have started their own group called Philanthropy, a group to expose Metal Gears and stopping them. Snake and Otacon sneak onto a US Marine ship housing a Metal Gear Ray, a Metal Gear designed to fighting the other Metal Gear Rexes, thanks to other nations getting them, because of that leaked data. The boat also has other visitors in the guise of Russian mercs. Snake sneaks through, has a photo taken by a US Army drone, gets pictures of Ray, and at the end, everything goes to hell during this part of the game. Revolver Ocelot appears and screws over the Russian mercs and the Russian commander, and the boat ends up being destroyed and killing almost everyone on board. Ocelot states he works for a group called the Patriots, and the whole situation ends. Everyone dies, even Snake. So 2 years after the area, it's covered by a facility known as Big Shell, designed to clear up the environmental aftermath of the ship explosion. The facility is invaded and taken over by a group known as the Sons of Liberty. The group, comprised of Russian mercenaries and Death Cell terrorist group, allegedly being run by Solid Snake. Wasn't he dead? Well, with 30 people hostage, including US President James Johnson, the demand was 30 billion, or else Big Shell would be destroyed, eventually destroying the ecosystem, because hey, the facility keeping it together, if it's gone, world's biggest disaster. Now at this point, Agent Raiden, and before we continue, this is a character that pissed a lot of people off. Me included initially. He was kinda whiny, tried too hard, but by the end he personally did grow on me. He basically replaced Snake for 90% of the game. So, becoming the game's protagonist, Raiden now infiltrates Big Shell, and he's sent on a mission to basically stop the terrorists. Raiden is assisted by the Colonel, not Campbell, just the Colonel, and his girlfriend Rosemary. who ended up being the perfect systems analyst. I don't know how, but she just ended up being the perfect system. You think they'd pick somebody not close in relationship to the actual person committing it in case of something going wrong super bad, but guess they did it. Raiden, during his infiltration, comes across a surviving character from My Immortal known as Vamp, a member of Dead Cell, and here he wipes out an entire SEAL team and almost there to kill Raiden. He was thwarted off by Iroquois Pliskin. Totally not Snake. Nah, not at all. No, Pliskin. Look, I don't give a shit what the script says, it's obviously Snake. Alright, I'm gonna keep calling him Snake. Anyways, Snake, Snake, not Pliskin, Snake gives Raiden a SOCOM, and Raiden tells him that he's from Foxhound, who, Snake tells, was actually disbanded 4 years ago. Raiden reveals he was a virtually trained soldier, and Snake decides he had enough of the conversation and mission continues. And both of them working together, Raiden comes across Fortune, who wipes out the rest of that SEAL team with ease. And the fact that all the SEAL team bullets were sprayed by the SEALs made no contact with her. She cannot be hit by bullets, hence the name Fortune. Kind of a weird but cool power, but whatever, moving on. Raiden moves forward and meets up with Peter Stillman, a bomb expert on the mission, and brought on board with the SEALs. Here him and Snake have to set out to disable the bombs on each strut. It's even told that the Harrier that was sent out to destroy 2 SEAL backup choppers actually shot them down. So, fuck any kind of backup, you guys are on your own. They eventually disarm the bombs, which turn out to be diversions because, well, as the characters kind of discover, they really couldn't harm Big Shell in the first place. Raiden, under complete pressure, disarms the actual bombs and meets up with Fortune for a battle. And I use that in the loosest terms because after we play Cartwheel Simulator, that's all it is. We just have to fucking, like, dodge her shots. We rush to the landing pad to disarm one more bomb, and here comes Fat Man, a member of Dead Cell who roller skates and drinks wine. Seriously, this is the worst cast for boss battles ever. Are you fucking serious? Anyways, once you beat Fat Man, we learned that he was kept in the dark from all of this, and his only goals in the entire thing was to just beat Peter Stillman and become the best bomber in history? Look, Fat Man, I'm sorry, only Bomberman holds that title. So Raiden disarms the bomb hidden under Fat Man's body, and with that all over, he now has to get the hostages out of there. Raiden meets up with the cyborg ninja, which, I know, you're like, what the hell? It's not Gray Fox though, trust me. Whatever fanfic you have on another tab right now, trust me, it's not him, I promise. Anyways, moving on. The ninja tells Raiden of a secret agent with the hostages called Richard Ames, and he knows the president's true location. The ninja also gives a uniform. Raiden takes this, finds a microphone to assist in detecting Ames by his pacemaker, as well as an AK to help blend in with the other soldiers. Raiden infiltrates, gets to the hostages, and meets up with Ames. Ames tells Raiden that they both have the same boss, as well as the president's location. Ames then tells Raiden about the terrorists' real goals. There wasn't a ransom or anything, but that the terrorists actually planned on making an outer heaven. Their goal was really to launch a nuclear bomb over Manhattan, which by the explosion's resulting EMP effect would kill all the power and electronics, thus liberating it? Get it? Sons of Liberty? Ames then has a heart attack and dies. Revolver Ocelot comes by in the middle of all this, and before subduing Raiden, the ninja intrudes and Raiden is able to make an escape and all the resulting aftermath. Raiden makes his way to the president, and in the way comes across a Harrier piloted by none other than Solid Snake, who claims to be Solid Snake out loud. The real Solid Snake, obviously pissed, states that he's the real Snake, and a battle ensues. Raiden takes down the Harrier with the help of Snake and Otacon, piloting a chopper, throwing down Stinger missiles at him, and a Codec call after the fight from Snake to Raiden occurs. Snake tells Raiden who he is and even tells him of Otacon as well. Snake tells Raiden that 2 years ago, he was on the ship with Metal Gear Ray, and that drone that took pictures of him was sent to all the news sources around, and Snake ended up being the guy who made eco-terrorists not some kind of a joke by the water cooler. Snake was able to escape the falling wreck of that ship, and with the help of Otacon, faking his death using his dead brother Liquid Snake's body, same genes, no one would be the wiser, right? The reason Snake was here in the first place was to stop Metal Gear, or a nuclear weapon used, anything. And also to aid Otacon's sister Emma Emmerich, who was being held hostage at Big Shell as well, as she was the system designer of the Patriots, which I'll introduce in a second here. At this point later in the infiltration, Raiden comes across terrorist leader Olga Gerlukovich, who also, by the way, was on that tanker 2 years ago. She fought Snake and Snake ended up tranking her. She managed to also survive that tanker and now is fighting to avenge her dead father. She states she has unfinished business with Solid Snake, and after all this, her and her comrades would actually just go to Russia instead of this Outer Heaven crap. Raiden eventually meets up with the president, who reveals the group as the Patriots, the Lalelulelo. The Patriots is a shadow group run by 12 members known as the Wiseman's Committee. He tells Raiden that he's only the president, and that's just a role given to him. President of the US, not a big deal when you really look at the Patriots as a whole. He's no more than a puppet, and even tells him that Solid Snake was a puppet too. In fact, he was the president, again, of the US back during Metal Gear Solid 1. And now he is super pissed because he was used as a puppet and goes on this revenge fantasy. He even tells him about the Les Enfants Terribles project. He tells him that the Patriots are run with an AI that will help shape history as they see fit. So basically the Illuminati. James Johnson, the president of the US, eventually tries to kill himself, but Ocelot intervenes and shoots him himself, and Raiden is now tasked with rescuing Emma Emmerich. He goes further and comes across Vamp, fights him off, rescues Emma, and takes her along, and on the way Vamp shows up, and after fighting him with the help of Snake, Emma is stabbed fatally by him. Otacon weeps, but Snake pulls his pal together. Once they decide to get into the Arsenal Gear facility underwater location, right below them basically, right where this nuclear bomb's about to go. To finish all this, Snake reveals his double cross to Raiden now, who he apparently was actually working with Olga. By the way, she was the ninja in this game. I know, Snake double crossed you with like 4 or 5 different mindfucks at the same time. Raiden is then knocked unconscious and wakes up on a torture bed. It's kind of sounding similar to Metal Gear Solid 1, right? With some minor differences. But anyways, move on a little bit. Olga in her Merc outfit, who during the double cross reveals herself as the ninja to Raiden, states that as long as Raiden can live, her child Sunny, her newborn child, will live, and she is currently kidnapped by the Patriots. Being a very concerned mother, obviously, she wants her child to live. She frees Raiden, and as he escapes, he makes his way through a series of weird calls by the, Patriots, who, at this point are kind of revealed to be Campbell and Rosemary throughout the whole game. Now as Raiden escapes, he meets up with Snake, gets his gear back, gets a new blade. Snake even apologizes for the betrayal. They battle their way through Arsenal Tengu forces, and Raiden fights off waves of Metal Gear Ray against his adopted father, Solid Snake. Yes, adopted. Get this. Apparently, Raiden was the adopted child soldier, and he was taken into custody by Big Boss's greatest clone, Solid Snake, and trained. He was the devil child, the white devil. That's a pretty big fucking backstory that probably should have been revealed earlier, but once beating them, Raiden is not... How the fuck did he not remember any... Whatever, fucking. Raiden is knocked out and everyone is atop Arsenal Gear. Solidus tells Raiden of everything and how his real goal was to get the information of the 12 Wiseman members and ditch his Mary Sue status by killing every single one of them. To Raiden it's revealed the Colonel and everyone he was working with in Foxhound was just a Patriot AI, explaining their later malfunctions. Ocelot, however, betrays literally everyone, kills Fortune by using Metal Gear Ray, after telling her that her powers were bullshit, and she only had those powers because she used some device that, like, scrambled bullets or something. She then apparently... And look, right now, I want you to stay with me. I know this whole video has been very confusing, but stay with me. Okay? She apparently actually had powers and avoids the missiles of Metal Gear. Now, okay, alright, you might be like, what the fuck, but hold on. Ocelot's, remember that arm he was missing in Metal Gear Solid 1? Well, it was replaced by Liquid's arm. That arm apparently took control because Liquid's spirit was in it. Because fucking nanomachines. And Liquid states all this was a ruse to lure Solid Snake out. Arsenal Gear goes into a collision course with Manhattan, hits a sizable portion, and Raiden and Solidus have their final battle. The Patriots now contact Raiden, the AI now, as it's revealed, and they tell him to kill Solidus, and he had to do it to save Sunny as well. In one sword duel later, the story is over, Raiden is outside Federal Hall, Snake and Otacon are off to find the Patriots, and America vows to never enter any military affairs, all this leading to the PMC's overruling in Metal Gear Solid 4. Snake and Otacon discover, now that the Wiseman Committee were actually dead for over 100 years. At the end of all this comes MGS4, the game to end the franchise for real. And the story to sum it all up, I'll give it right here. This game is all about Solid Snake, now Old Snake, given one final task, to stop the leader of the PMCs, Liquid Ocelot, and with it ending the Patriots, and finally finishing himself off, because remember Foxdie? Well, apparently it has deteriorated to a point where Snake can literally become the very thing he fought against, a mass murder weapon. I'm actually going to leave this game for you to experience, because after all this, it ends with honestly, in my opinion, one of the best endings. And not to just a video game, but to the entire video game franchise, spanning well over 2 decades. So with that, I leave that game up to you. And what do you mean? No, we're not doing that game. I don't care if it's part of the canon. We're not covering Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. No! Okay, I don't care if it takes 4 years out. This is the perfect fucking ending. Alright, okay, alright, fine. I guess I'll explain the Metal Gear fucking Rising: Revengeance to you, okay? Alright, here, okay, like, fucking come along with me, okay? So, Raiden, basically, even after being given a great ending in Metal Gear Solid 4, decides, oh crap, I have a wife and kid, now I gotta go make that paper, you feel me? So he goes all the way and joins the PMC again in his cyborg body, fights Metal Gears by throwing them into the air, even though he couldn't do that previously. I don't know how he did that, but he fights Metal Gears, and then he meets his Brazilian troll, who beats the crap out of him. Then Raiden gets pissed, and he upgrades to Windows 10, then he fights off a bunch of other people, and then he fights and fights and fights until he comes across a bunch of kids who are used for like some fucking cyborg project, because no, apparently nanomachines and all that stuff was bad, but 4 years later now they're turning things into cyborgs, which, how the fuck does that happen? I don't know. Then he goes off to Colorado to fight this head PMC dude who has fucking shields for soldiers or shoulder. I don't know what's going on here. He then beats the crap out of this guy, drives out into the desert, fights the Brazilian troll, wins, and then he goes to Sonny from the Sonny all grown up. Sonny apparently developed a Mach 1 vehicle that can take him all the way to Pakistan in an hour to fight Metal Gear Excelsius. Raiden fights Metal Gear Excelsius, and then, I'm not shitting you here, ladies and gentlemen, he fights the Senator of Texas. A franchise that offers some of the best final bosses ended out with the Senator of Texas. 'Cause nanomachines, son. So after this, once he beats the Senator of Texas, Twitter has some fucking crazy shit going on. The whole story is some shit like that. I don't know. What the fuck? What would you... What? Alright, after that, after I had to take my meds there, I want to end this video on telling you that the story for Metal Gear is very, very stupid. Now, this video is probably going to be very confusing. In fact, this video may have actually made you more confused. But that's how the story of Metal Gear works. It's a confusing tale that's full of retcons and some of the stupidest moments ever. But there's a reason why this franchise is amazing. There's a reason why I actually end up liking the story, no matter how dumb and convoluted it is. Because Metal Gear is a game that tries to be realistic, but it understands it's a game. And as a game, it reaches out to this fantasy world that we sometimes really look forward to. It puts us in the shoes of this badass soldier, and we're sent onto a quest that we have no idea about. We feel like we're Solid Snake or Big Boss in these situations, being sent into these areas faced against immense odds, and we come out succeeding. It's a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, in a world where games do take themselves too seriously. This game is, in my opinion, this franchise is a pretty pivotal one, not just to stealth action games, but to gaming in general. And I really, really want you all to go check it out. No matter what I've said about Konami or anything at all, I still say the Metal Gear franchise is a good franchise. It may not appeal to everyone, but I hope this video has kind of opened your eyes to it and somewhat explained to people what the heck's going on. With the upcoming, Metal Gear Solid 5, or not upcoming, it's released now, with that game out now on the market, I recommend you guys try it. I recommend you play it, and I also recommend you play all the games in the franchise if you have time. They're not that hard to track down anymore. The MSX games, which were once Japan only, are actually available on PS2 versions of MGS3, and if you get the HD collection on the 360 PS3, you get them bundled with 3. And hey, if you have a PS4, you can basically play all the games in the franchise, really, safe for portable ops. But then again, that isn't really even canon. So that being said, that was a look at Metal Gear as a whole franchise, and I do recommend you all try it out. It's a great series, and it's filled with hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay. You won't regret it, trust me. I really hope this video has shown you what the franchise is all about. It's a stupid storyline, very convoluted, very dumb. Trust me, me and Imaru have spent 4 hours on a night discussing this shit with each other and detailing how stupid it was. But its stupidity is done well. it keeps our interest, and maybe that's a way, maybe that's a reason why these games that, again, don't take themselves too seriously by any chance, are one of the best games of all time. I hope this video has introduced Metal Gear to you, and for those people who have played the games, I hope this video was at least enjoyable, but it's getting pretty lengthy. It's my feature-length look at Metal Gear Solid, the story. This is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This is me, Mudahar, and I'm out.